Hi, everyone. My name is Daphne Thompson, and I'm here today talking about AI for municipalities and the practical use of it. And I am joined by the one and only Adam Anderson and Kerry Anderson. Adam is the CEO of Threat Captain, an amazing, cool tool that I've been showing a lot of you when I meet you at on how to establish what is the financial impact of any kind of cybersecurity incident that there might be. And Kerry is the director of partners, right?
Customer success, yes.
Customer success. Awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for being here today. Do you guys want to just do a quick intro of yourself?
Sure. Kerry, why don't you go first?
Okay, I'm Kerry Anderson, and yes, I am the Director of Customer Success here at Threat Captain. Threat Captain is the brainchild that Adam has had for the last few years, and it really does a super good job of illustrating what the cost would be of a cyber breach, and makes it so that you can really quantify the risk associated with that. So I really enjoy, of course, we have the same last name, so we are married. We enjoy working together. It's been a lot of fun. And yeah, my obsession is the tool and how to use the tool and how to leverage the tool, and also to just make it obvious out in the world that this is not just a problem of how to fix something, but why to fix something. And it impacts us all. So we're really, really passionate about it here at Threat Captain.
And I am Adam Anderson. I have been doing cybersecurity since the 1900s. And I have to tell you that it's often not that we don't know how to stop cybercrime. It's that most of the time it's very difficult to justify the expense of solving the problem. Because typically what happens is you have a very smart technologist see a issue and want to fix that issue. But not all issues are created equal. So if the damages from the breach are, hundreds of dollars and the solution are tens of thousands of dollars, it doesn't make sense to spend the money. But most of the time, CFOs and municipalities are not equipped to be able to have that kind of conversation in spreadsheets. So I've spent a lot of time doing tabletop exercises, sitting in front of CFOs and CSOs, watching them fight, very kind to each other, but they're still fighting. One wants to spend money, one wants to keep the company profitable. And so, that's what I've really enjoyed doing over the last 3 to 5 years is helping bridge that gap between the cost of a cybersecurity incident, and then what kind of risk should the CFO decide they want to accept, mitigate, or transfer. And I thank you so much for letting us play with your friends and get to talk to all of these wonderful people. I'm really excited about diving into it.
Yeah, well, let's start geeking out because this is where I get super excited. All right. So, Canadian cybersecurity, or the federal Canadian cybersecurity unit, has now put out that the cybersecurity risk responsibility is no longer on the vendor. So your Copilot or your Microsoft is no longer the responsible party to ensure that you're safe. The responsibility is now shifted to the user, which means it's now on the municipalities themselves. What I sometimes encounter is that councils don't fully always understand that this is a governance issue. This is where they get in to make these decisions. And what I found is when we add a financial aspect to that, council's eyes open up and like, oh, wow, that makes sense. But in order for them to understand that, it takes a little bit of explaining. What have you guys seen, and how can Threat Captain bridge that gap?
So the fundamental disconnect that has to be overcome right at the beginning is that when you think about risk, often the municipality will think, well, sure, I'll own how do we respond to a flood. Well, sure, I'll own how do we respond to rolling blackouts, natural disasters, things like that. But because it's so hard to understand the damages from cybercrime or from the liabilities inherent inside of adopting AI, they say, well, we'll make the nerd, we'll make the IT person own that risk. But the disconnect that I really want to make sure we hammer home here is Risk is risk, and you do not let the IT person tell you what to think about the risk. All they can do is give you data. And so often municipalities get paralyzed because they get cyber gobbledygook. They get language they don't understand, and therefore they don't know how to talk about risk. So it isn't about providing a number that is exactly what it's going to cost. What it is, it's about providing a framework for thinking about risk in the language of the CFO. And so when threat captain's doing the job that it's intended to do, it is bridging and translating, hey, I see that if we don't have multi-factor authentication, the bad guys can spoof passwords and get into our systems. The CFO will then say, so what? I don't understand why that's a problem. Well, it's because of here are the financial damages from a third-party email compromise. Is this a problem worth solving? Now that I have a dollar amount attached to that email compromise, the CFO can make a decision about deploying capital or accepting the risk. And that's the magic that starts happening is cyber crime becomes just like a flood. Is this a problem that we need to assign resources to? Or do we just tell everyone to build their houses on stilts?
Well, and
love
that's
how
the
you-
other thing too.
Sorry.
I think that you have to like think through it as if it were not just accepting a bad thing could happen, but accepting that once the bad thing happens, it's your responsibility. It's going to be your responsibility one way or another. So do you want to prepare for it? Do you want to have insurance to help you when and if that happens? Because ultimately it feels like something that would be an IT problem, but it's your problem. It's the business owner's problem. It's the municipality's problem. So listen, we're not here to scare you. We're here to show you what risk there is, understand that there is risk, and then help you determine how much of that you're willing to retain and take responsibility for, what you intend to mitigate with additional securities, and what you want to transfer to an insurance type situation.
Exactly. I love what you said. So taking this into a normal EOC situation, because every single municipality has got a emergency operating center plan. When bad things happen, we know what to do. We know who our coordinator is. We know who the director is. We know who the liaison is. We know all these things, and they train for it on a consistent basis. Now, cyber is becoming exactly the same. We need an EOC when there is stuff happening. And I'm starting to keep telling all the municipalities that I work with, saying that we need to get into that mindset of saying, all right, excuse my French, shit is going to hit the fan. Someone is going to switch on the fan. Now what? It is going to happen. So let's try and prepare for it.
Well, here's the cool thing is we already know how to prepare for it. The problem is that we in cyber don't use the same words that people use in municipalities. So for example, we call that an incident response plan. That is gobbledygook language. And so it's like when I'm arguing with my wife. Often we are actually saying the same thing, but we're approaching it from completely different sides. And the first step is reaching understanding on how we're communicating and where the commonalities are, and then merging the two perspectives and points of view. So it's always fascinating to me that the first problem is a language problem. And that's why governance exists. Governance exists to provide a framework for conversations to happen where you actually can produce the plans that everybody can understand in the same kind of language. Because I can have the best incident response plan in the world, but if it doesn't actually plug into the EOC in a way that the municipality can act on it, then it's an absolutely useless piece of documentation.
Exactly. So I want to, as we speaking on that, I would love to go straight into a little showcase of what this platform looks like. So this is the thread. This is Threat Captain. When you open up the dashboard, this is your clients. Now I have created my client as Town of Maggie. This is Town of Maggie. When we go into Maggie, we can say it's the governance, public sector, government. It is in North America. What is Canadian dollars? What is our town name? the important part here is we're trying to figure out what is happening and what is the financial risk that we have, because that is the part that lands on our council tables and they need to understand it. And this is the part that they need to put in the strategic plans. How many employees that we have? Let's say we've got 51 to 2,000. Our annual revenue, or 200, our annual revenue is about, our budget is 25 million to about 50 million. We have about 150 employees that we work on. This is our email contact. Anyway, so now we update our client. Now we want to do a risk assessment on this of what do we think our actual risk is. So we're going to go to our town and we're going to run a simulation. As we click on here, public sector, this is our residents. So our sensitive data, because we have property information, tax information about all of the residents that we have. So those are all very, very sensitive data. So let's say in our town, we have 30,000 might be a little big for a 25 million budget. So let's say we are on 12,000 people, 12,000 records. The breach that we have is ransomware. Someone has taken over, just like they did at Fort St. John's. You get the phone call in the morning saying, hey, I'm here to help. I just took over all of your network. Let me show you how to get it back. Ransomware. We have no access. Technically, as you mentioned, an EOC for cyber and incident response plan activates immediately. With this, it is a major breach. Ransomware is a major breach. Let's say we've got outage of 24 hours, and just say it cost us about $25,000 per hour of outage, roughly. This is all of our finance sector, it's our public works, it's our recreation part, it is everyone together. This is now what it costs us. Let's run the simulation. What Threat Captain now helps us understand to bring to council is to say what this impact actually looks like financially. Now we can mitigate the risk through various aspects, of course, and that's where I assume our IT team helps a bit in saying that. But at this stage, a breach could potentially cost us about $6.4 million. So, Adam, what does that look in practice? Like when council sees that, what do they need? What do we want them to understand?
Well, you see that it's split into 4 different sectors, right? So you've got, if you scroll up just a little bit, you've got that pie chart. The red is how much of an outage. So all of this information is based off of previously recorded breach data. So this is based off of the 2025 IBM cost of a data breach report, where we looked at municipalities all over the world. We've narrowed it down to geographic location. And this is kind of like looking at a real estate app where it's kind of guessing the value of a house based off the fact that it's 3-bedroom, 2-bath. What's the geographic location? So it is an estimate. And that's what that sine wave on the right is. That is saying that at the very top, you'll see that it says 6 point something. And that's statistically the most likely cost of the breach. But if you don't have your IR plan together, if you're not actually responding well, it can go all the way to the right and it can be a lot worse. Or if you're already prepared, it can go all the way to the left. And so one of the things that the municipality needs to lock in on is if you scroll down just a little bit, underneath those 3 numbers, there is a button that if you click on that, it will then show some of the most common things that might go wrong that will impact those large numbers. So you'll have to forgive me. I don't have these memorized. And in my older age, my eyes can't read some of these things. But this is the most important part, because the number is not actually relatable until the municipality can look and say, do any of these actually apply to me, right? So once they get to the point where you can start seeing yourself in the data, then the data becomes actionable and usable. And so the responsibility of the person running the tool, running the platform and having the conversation is to discover where is the pain? Where is it dangerous enough that we need to pay attention to it? Because, you mentioned parks. typically if there's an outage, the parks aren't actually really impacted other than maybe maintenance and sending crews and dispatches. But the parks can probably be okay for a little while. What cannot be okay for a little while is water, right? So this is intended to start a conversation where the uniqueness of every single municipality can then be discovered, and then you can have risk conversations with that 6 point whatever million in damages.
That is a little scary, but super, super fascinating. So Threat Captain helps us understand what the financial aspect is based on what we currently have in place and the unique conversations on what our potential risk is financially and where we should aim our budgets and where we could decrease or mitigate the risk a little bit more.
That's right. And this is, oh, I'm sorry, Kerry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I wanted to add as we are trying to wrap our minds around really big, scary numbers. Again, this is a simulation run on businesses, companies, municipalities like this. The cool thing about Threat Captain is that you're really able to customize it. And this number that you're looking at is all before we take into consideration what a municipality might already have in place. So we are going to, give you some credit for whatever securities you already do have in place. We're going to give you some credit if you have insurance. We just want you to understand, listen, a big pie in the sky, this is what we're looking at. You may actually be in a better position than you realize, but this is as worst case scenario as it could possibly be. But the Threat Captain platform does allow you to, number one, get a little bit more granular. There's a section above that says business justification. And when you click it down, it'll kind of give you a list of key things that are at risk, different kinds of records and important things like that, operational things that may not apply across everything. So if you're going through some of these things, I personally find that when you make this more personalized, then it becomes an act of, okay. So then if this is what I'm still kind of retaining after those specific things are deducted, then what does mitigation look like? And what does the cost of that mitigation look like? So I think that's an important distinction. Yes, this is all very scary stuff. And also, there is hope, and businesses, companies, municipalities don't have to go spend blindly just because somebody said so. We can tell you why.
I want to follow up on one thing there too that Kerry said. Daphne, we're really we use the big number to set the stage. It's the hourly downtime where the rubber hits the road. So if we say it's $25,000 an hour that it's down, and you look at the municipality and say, do we care if you're down for an hour? Most of them are going to say no. Most of the time, an hour blip does not actually result in $25,000 worth of damages. What actually ends up happening is that there is a certain number of hours that when you hit that threshold, the costs really start compounding. And so the most important thing, for a municipality to do is to come up with a threshold of risk that when it goes over this, now it's painful. So for some, it might be, hey, we could be down for 2 days and it's going to be inconvenient and we'll have some damages. But maybe it's not as bad as if we get into 72 hours, 144 hours. And so every municipality, and this might be different based off some of the new legislation that's coming down about how long of an outage before the damages actually become super important. But this is for the municipalities, CFO, and their risk team to have an opinion over. And that's the whole purpose of this platform, is to give them the tools to make an educated decision on their risk, not to tell them how to react to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Because what I'm also finding is a lot of our municipalities don't actually have the IT team in-house. Majority of municipalities have got their IT systems outsourced to independent contractors or third-party suppliers. And they this usually falls under the corporate officer or director of legislative services role, majority of the time. Sometimes it is under the financial portfolio as well. But these type of things, if I find there's a real big disconnect. And like you said, there's new legislation that is coming in that's already passed in Quebec and in Ontario. Bill 194 is stating that there might be room for every municipality to now have a CISO, a Chief Information and Security Officer. The rest of Canada has not followed yet, but it might if it's already there. Alberta's new privacy legislation, where it's split into ATIA and PAPIA, those are very much linked to this as well, and a privacy aspect to it. But now to try and explain this to council, because ultimately this is going to fall on council's table. Councils need to understand what are the risks, how to govern them, where to direct the operational teams to go to. How will this help them?
Well, the quick answer is that it's going to help them know how to handle their vendors. So you had the cyber insurance health score up just a moment ago. And when a council has to deal with vendors who are providing cybersecurity, when they're having vendors providing generic IT services, when they have insurance coming in telling them what to do, if you do not have an in-house executive that understands how all of that fits together and are able to make good decisions, then you're at the victim of your vendors. It's very much, I'll go back to the house analogy. If I'm building a house with my wife and we have general contractors coming in and the electrician is telling me one thing and then the framer and the drywaller is telling me another, who do I trust? Well, that's why you have a general contractor. You have somebody who is able to manage all the vendors to make sure the house is secure, the house is healthy, and the house is strong. The direction that Canada is going is saying it is a municipality's responsibility to own all of those parts fitting together. And that's really where the power comes in, is when you begin to have the authority to tell those people what to do based off of the end goals you're trying to accomplish. And you are no longer able, the vendor's no longer able to bully you around because you don't understand what they're talking about. The game becomes a lot more fair for the municipality to build what they need to be safe.
Wow, what a mouthful, hey? Kerry? Sorry, do you have something to add on that?
I just think it's really important for municipalities to think about this. I came from a medical background, and so I've seen a lot of things shift in medicine, and it was really interesting when we at the hospital started having to form teams between different floors and departments for different kinds of instances. For instance, an active shooter incident at a hospital system or in the hospital. There are certain people who are identified to be leadership in an incident, particularly pertaining to that. I think that the same kind of mentality has to happen when we're talking about governments accepting that this is another kind of incident like this, even if the results are somewhat different. What I want to impart to folks is that, oh shoot, my data got breached. Bummer. They don't know what that means. Data equals dollars. The longer your data is exposed, the more that's going to cost. So that's what I want to say when I say an incident response plan certainly may not be as dramatic for this kind of thing as an active shooter incident response plan would be. And also financially, it could be devastating. And we don't want to see that happen. So I think it's an important move going forward for everybody to understand their responsibilities here.
Ooh. So this is why I like being married to this lady. She says a smart thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's right. And also, guess what? So here's the other thing. Not all incidences are created equally. So if you don't have the numbers in front of you, everything has to be treated as a major breach. I'll give you an example. A minor breach might happen where some of your data is taken. There is no operational disruption. So ransomware disrupts operations, very easy to measure. Oh yeah, that was a big thing. But data exfiltration, where someone steals your residence's data and is now using it on the dark web and is selling it, well, there's no visible damages from that. So it's very difficult to say, well, how much money should I spend to keep this data safe when I don't have it tied back to damages? So what is important to know is that cybercrime is not a light switch. It is not on or off. It has roughly 14 things have to happen in order for the full damages to be realized. But that doesn't mean that if the first few things happen that there are no damages, they're just hidden. So having somebody who understands how to think about the whole, oh, she's raising her hand. Hold on.
I have
Hold on.
something to say.
Wait, I'm cooking, girl. Let me cook. Not having the ability to also measure the small stuff and understanding how it will send ripples through the entire municipality, then, that gets very, very difficult to do disaster planning because you do need to know all of it. And I'll let Kerry jump in here in a second. Picture this. I keep going back to floods. If it's a little flood and 2 streets kind of back up and we have to shut some traffic down, well, the rest of the city is doing just fine. If it's a major flood, well, that's completely different. And so by having the financials in front of you of a minor breach or a minor disruption versus a major disruption lets you model different kinds of scenarios and different kinds of responses. Go ahead, Kerry.
Now can I talk? Okay. The other thing that I want to mention too is I was working with a client of mine on a client of theirs, and it happened to be a company where access had happened through someone clicking on a LinkedIn link in the company. And somehow they weaseled their way into this tiny company's QuickBooks. Very scary. But the company said, it's okay, we changed the password. Okay, so you closed the door. That does not mean that they got out. So oftentimes they can still hide for a long time. That's why ongoing monitoring is so important. Just because you close the door after a hurricane does not mean that water didn't get in and damage the floors. You have to continuously think about the damage that it already caused and what it allowed in once it happened.
So when we talk about this, it is cybersecurity. It's big words. Municipalities usually, like I said, just pull it out to the IT department. But now that AI is on the forefront, AI is being used to make municipalities' life so much easier, so much efficient. And that's kind of the area that I play in most, is how do we make the life of our overworked, burnt out, very low capacity staff at our municipalities get more time back. And AI is an answer for that. So how does this play into this overarching cybersecurity situation?
So AI is one of the most powerful things that have happened. And we use it a lot. If you ever ask me, Adam, how much AI should I use? I'm going to say as much as you can handle. That being said, every time something new touches your data, or every time a process or a system changes with a new piece of technology, it brings in inherent risk. And it's counterintuitive because you might think, well, I need a really smart IT person to help me understand this. That is not the case. The IT person can only tell you how the technology works. You need someone who intimately understands the fundamental workings of the municipality to identify the friction parts and what's important inside of that. And that has to go first. So when you think about AI, it actually has nothing to do with technology. It has to do with how can the operations of the municipality improve. And then you bring cyber into it when things begin to change inside of your processes to say, all right, how do we have to change our security posture now that we're taking advantage of these amazing tools. One of the things that is sometimes scary is you don't know where your data is going. Or if you've installed agents that are acting on business systems, how do I make sure that that agent isn't going insane and doing things that it shouldn't? So that all comes back to the governance practices. For those of you who don't know, governance is nothing more and nothing less than just checking to make sure the things that you said are going to happen are happening and producing the results. I'll use a quick example. We have a 15-year-old son who sometimes, when he takes a shower, just runs the water and doesn't get in. Governance is my wife saying, buddy, your hair's not wet, get in the shower, and you still smell bad. So that is a management function. That is an ownership function. That's an executive function. It is not somebody who is actually taking the shower. Does that make sense, kind of that metaphor?
That is amazing. I think everyone can relate to something similar to that. So talking about the governance, what I'm also finding quite a bit is how if municipalities get external, big, large consulting firms to write their governance sphere, it sometimes become even more scary because they make it so big and so lengthy and procedural wise, which is probably correct in paper format, but it makes it unattainable for municipalities to actually keep to it. So what I'm trying to do when we do this is to understand what is the risk of a new platform that we're using or a new agent or what we're doing versus the impact of it. Like a clear example is Canva. Everyone is using Canva. Everyone is trying out Nana Banana. These are high risk things because the data is not in Canada. It is not very secure. It does learn from what you do. However, the impact is very low because what municipalities are usually using these platforms for is for public information anyway. So we want it to get out. So
I love what you just said. Can I pull a thread? I have a lot of self-confidence. And if I stand in an emergency room and my job is to triage people coming in, to who is the most at risk, I unfortunately do not have the skill sets to triage appropriately. But if you put my wife, who was a nurse, into an emergency room, she's far more qualified to triage. So the number one problem that a municipality is going to have is Canva where does Canva live in the triage of risk? And that's when you need to have somebody who understands how the systems work, how the new AI tools are impacting those systems, and then triage so that you're providing governance to the most important things. When I like how you were saying impact, because risk to me is a mathematical equation. It's likelihood times impact. How likely is the AI to cause a problem times how much impact if something went wrong equals the amount of risk. So without the impact number, you cannot understand risk. And without how likely is this new AI to cause some form of disruption or some kind of breach, you still can't get a full picture. And if you get right back to it, a technology provider cannot answer that for you. That is still a business equation that requires a smart person to guide you through. So you can't boil the ocean. You cannot do a full governance layover. Like everybody wants that. And gosh, I wish you could have it. You don't have enough time. So you got to be very careful in what you're working on.
Love that. The shiny new tool syndrome, right? Don't have to have everything, but choose the one that hopefully you're already paying for. Within majority of municipalities is within your Microsoft framework. Those are like, let's say 75 to 95% already vetted. They're already there. You're already paying for it. It's already in your system. No, but thank you so much, guys. It was absolutely a pleasure chatting to you. Adam, Kerry, how can municipalities, if they want to make use of your platform, get in touch with you or get their IT teams in touch with you?
Well, that's lovely. The best way to get in contact with us is, of course, to go to our website, threatcaptain.com, or reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're both there, and send us a direct message. But if you really want me to smile, you should call Daphne. and you should have her help you figure out how to use this, because at the end of the day, we built Threat Captain to help providers service municipalities. It's often not inherently inside of the skill sets of the municipalities to use our tool right now. It's always better to have a third-party consultant use our product on your behalf until you're very, very comfortable with it. And then you move into in-housing this if that's appropriate for you. You don't have to run Threat Captain.
Yeah.
That's it. That's right. So Daphne, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, I think that we friends already. They got me on speed dial too.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Okay, anything from you before we close up?
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this is super important. Now, Threat Captain's mission is to reduce cybercrime globally. The only way that works is if the people who are the victims of cybercrime understand the financial impacts so they can make business decisions to reduce business risk. And that's why people like you are so important to spread this word, to normalize it's okay to treat cybercrime as just another business problem that you have to fix.
Amazing. I love that. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening. And I hope to see you soon. Remember, if there's any other topic that you'd like to chat about, drop it in the comments or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat soon.